That was President Trump speaking to flood victims yesterday in Corpus Christi, promising to help all of those affected to get back on their feet. And the president plans to return to Texas on Saturday. Our next guest says in a commentary on the Wall Street Journal that Mr. Trump is getting widespread praise for his handling of the crisis on the Gulf Coast, with his administration showing a focus on Harvey that extends even to the president's Twitter feed. Tevi Troy, here with me now. He is a former Deputy Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services and author of the book, Shall We Wake the President? 2 Centuries of Disaster Management from the Oval Office. Tevi, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, and our hearts go out to the victims, and we support the efforts of the first responders and volunteers. Thank you.
Absolutely. What's your initial assessment of the president's reaction, his administration's reaction, as this crisis is still ongoing?
Well, I think that I've been surprisingly reassured by the president's response thus far. He's got a really top team in there who know how to handle disasters, people with real disaster experience, including General Kelly, who was the Secretary of Homeland Security before being Chief of Staff. You've got Tom Bossert, the Homeland Security Advisor. You've got Brock Long, who headed the emergency response in Alabama. So he brought in experienced people in this area, and I found that reassuring.
You know, when the president sat down there in Texas, he also brought the First Lady. He also brought members of his team, cabinet-level people like Linda McMahon from the Small Business Administration, Ben Carson, Housing and Urban Development. Are these the officials and the jobs that are going to need to be done when this storm when the waters finally recede?
Yeah, absolutely. In my time in the Bush administration, I worked there in multiple disasters, including 9/11 and including Katrina, and I realized the extent to which you need the entire cabinet. And it's not just FEMA and it's not just HHS, but multiple agencies are involved in this, not just in the immediate response, but also in the recovery. So I'm glad that he's involving those agencies, but I'm also glad that they had some practices, some tabletop exercises that took place, including one on the first day when Brock Long was sworn in at FEMA. They had a cabinet-wide exercise.
You know, politics can creep in even when the needs are so dire. And we've seen still some hard feelings when Superstorm Sandy funding didn't come in as quickly as some folks would like. You know, how do you keep politics at bay?
It's hard to do, but I have been encouraged by what I see with the rescue efforts going on, the volunteers, the people who are responding via Twitter feed. Nobody's saying, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican before rescuing somebody. So I think this is a good time, at a time of national crisis, for all of us to get together, put the politics aside, and focus on the real problem, the devastation that's going on in Houston.
Yeah, the president and his team made a conscious choice to not go into the most hard-hit areas, to stay away from those areas of devastation, to let people do their work, and to work on those rescues. But he's been hammered a little bit in the media for not expressing enough empathy initially. Do you agree with that assessment that some folks are making?
I completely agree that it's really important for a president to express sympathy, empathy, to show that you care for the victims. I'm not sure it's fair to say that because he didn't go into the exact disaster area, that's a problem, because I think it's smart for presidents to stay out of the immediate disaster zone, because otherwise you tax the resources of the first responders who need to be doing other things rather than setting up security cordons or your motorcade. So I don't think that is indicative of a lack of sympathy and empathy, but I do think he needs to be careful and aware in his public statements to make sure he is expressing that empathy.
And what's most important? You know, the grade is still out on the president on this. There will be weeks and months and potentially years to come, billions of dollars worth of damage, people that are out of their homes who can't go back to work because their business places are underwater as well. You know, is the final assessment how well the president leads, how quickly recovery efforts get underway, how soon people can rebuild their lives?
Well, I really think it is 2 different questions. There's the initial response, and I am heartened by what I've seen in the initial response, not just in having good people, not just having preparation in advance, but also they pre-deployed resources. They're working together with the states. There's good cooperation on that end, so the response has been good. The recovery is a much longer question. Frankly, I'm sorry to say that the American people often lose focus and don't pay attention to the recovery as much as they do to the initial response, but the recovery will take years, and the full grade on the Trump response and recovery will take a while to come in.
Absolutely. Tevi Troy, thank you so much for your insights. We appreciate you sharing them today.
Thank you.